Well, hey everyone, we've got a brand new sponsor.
BagsUnlimited.com.
BagsUnlimited.com has a huge catalog of vinyl supplies, from record sleeves to storage boxes to cardboard mailers, record bags, and more. Whether you're just starting your collection or you're already the biggest record shop in the state, you can buy your vinyl supplies direct at BagsUnlimited.com.
And now, on with the show. Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 461 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for fans and collectors of vinyl records. And today, dear people, I am so excited. The record collecting legend returns. Henry Rollins, who started his career at Haagen-Dazs before being promoted to lead vocals in Lightning Rod of Black Flag, then forming Rollins Band, spending time on stage and screen, and writing books. Henry's continued his pursuit as an author. I see his name frequently on liner notes of recent reissues of some of my favorite albums, and Henry's got a series of books which I think each of you will want to know about. The Stay Fanatic series, which is essentially Henry's music journal through the eyes of a fan and record collector. And it goes super deep. He writes it through the eyes of a major record collecting fan, so these Stay Fanatic books are made with us in mind. They show sleeves, labels, variations, rarities, super rarities, and all while explaining the stories behind the variations, misprints, errors, Easter eggs, and more. But Henry's not just got vinyl in these books, but posters, flyers, pictures, other paper collateral that tells the story of some of these obscure record pressings. And truly, I can't express how delighted I am with Henry's Stay Fanatic book series. It really is made with the record collectors and superfans in mind. And today, this is the first part of our two-part interview. Henry and I discuss the Stay Fanatic books, the research, Henry's record collection. We talk bootlegs, buying off Discogs and eBay, and lots more. Oh, and by the way, you can get Stay Fanatic Volume 4 right now at henryrollins.com. There are a few previous volumes of the Stay Fanatic series, which I'd also recommend, as his work does sell out. I think Volume 1 of Stay Fanatic is no longer available, and Volume 2 is pretty close to out of stock, so don't sleep on this series. Stay Fanatic books at henryrollins.com. And again, as I mentioned, this is the first of a two-part discussion. Part 2 will be up later this week, I think. Make sure you follow the Vinyl Guide podcast in your podcast app to get part 2 of this discussion the moment it becomes available. And just FYI, the Patreon legends, the supporters of the Vinyl Guide podcast, have already been listening to this full interview, commercial-free and in its entirety, since last week. So, dear people, there are clear benefits to becoming a Vinyl Guide Patreon legend at patreon.com/vinylguide. Help support the show and you get early access to episodes, extended interviews. All episodes are commercial free and high resolution up on patreon.com/vinylguide. We even do some vinyl giveaways and other special things. So what are you waiting for? Join us now, patreon.com/vinylguide, and enjoy all the extras. Okay, there he is. Let's get into part 1 of our conversation with record fanatic number 1, Mr. Henry Rollins.
Thanks for having interest in this crazy book, man.
Oh, Henry, this is a book that's very much built for people like myself and the listeners of the show. How would you describe the Stay Fanatic series?
Well, can I give you the slightest bit of backstory?
Please.
Many years ago, around 2011 or 2012, I had just finished writing 3 books called Fanatic, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, which were annotations of my radio show on a little station called Indie 103 that went away. And I'd annotate every single song, which is like, total overachiever activity. And the listeners really liked it because here's information and here's the record the single came from and all of that. So I had the audacity to put these 3 volumes out on my microscopic publishing company. And so that was years, that ended in 2006 or so. And over the years, I wanted to get back into music writing, kind of like a fanzine on growth hormones. And around 2011 or 2012, I started writing in a fashion where you get deep into the weeds of a certain record, where you take a molecule and you blow it up to the size of a planet, where there's just too much information. And maybe by doing so, there's a story that can be told where some dots are connected that the casual listener would have never thought to do. And in there's a pretty good story. And so I started writing furiously away at this project, and about once every few months I'd have the courage to look back at the writing and conclude, no, this isn't it. So I kept writing away and looking at it and going, no, I don't know what I'm after, but this certainly isn't it. So in 2013, I think it was, the Stooges, as in Iggy and, we're going to do a show in Seoul, South Korea. And so I'm a big fan. Iggy's my hero. So I contact the band's manager, Henry McGrogan, and I said, hey, man, I want to come down to Seoul, South Korea and see that show. Can you ask the big man if I can have clearance to be a guest and not a pest? And he said, yeah, let me ask him. It's not like I have his phone number. And so the big man got back and said, yeah, Henry's welcome. Just, keep him 30 yards away from me. And so I flew down there and I did a travel log of the experience. I got there a couple of days before because I love being in Seoul. And so I went to the coffee houses. I sat and I wrote about, my Stooges obsession. And the band comes to town and I see Steve McKay in the lobby, the horn player from Funhouse, who's in the lineup. And I said, it's in the lobby, hey, Steve. And then later on, hours later, he's the nicest guy. I depart to a coffee place to write it up. And I said to myself, I wrote it out like, hey, Steve. That's what Iggy said to Steve on the Funhouse album. Come on, Steve. He calls out to Steve. And when Iggy calls out to Steve, that's the guy who's in the lobby. What a fan I am. And just to be as old as I am and still be like a 15-year-old with a personality poster thumbtacked to the wall, I think is kind of cool. And so I wrote up this whole thing, complete with photos I took, because I'm backstage with the band after the show. They're all exhausted. It was a sweat fest up there. And this band were great. And so I read back the writing and I went, this is what I want to do. Like a serial documentary journal entry style with pictures. And so I started really laying into the writing with the idea that somehow I'm going to be able to put images in a book, 8.5 by 11 format. We'll blow it up, make it bigger so you can make the pictures bigger, run flyers full size, correspondence, set lists, and give the reader some real bang. Because what good is a bunch of writing if there's not a picture?
Right.
And so with pictures, you can tell a story. And so the Ruts, a great UK punk band, as their first 7-inch is an example of kind of the whole premise of Stay Fanatic. It's In a Rut is the A-side, one of the greatest songs ever. And the B-side is called H.I. It's about heroin addiction and how bad of an idea it is. There's 3 different pressings of the record, at least. The first one, the publishing, is basically the guy who ran the studio the band is recording in. They didn't know. They're young and kind of rough guys. And so they just did a publishing deal with this guy. And by the second record, there's a new publisher. And by the third record, there's a different distributor, and the Ruts have their own publishing. And so there's a story between the 3, like what happened to make them switch publishers. You find out when you do some digging, and luckily I can ask actual members of the band, that they got into a bit of a disagreement with the original guy, and then they kind of upgraded as the record kept selling. This is a story I've never seen told except for finally in the really great biography on the Ruts by Roland Link called Love in Vain. But I'm the first one I knew who sought out the information. And when you can put all 3 images, high resolution, on a page and tell the story, even a Ruts fan has to go, well, that I don't care, but that's pretty cool. But the book is kind of aimed at, the ones who are already there. But I always want to get the uninitiated. Like say you hate punk rock music, fair enough. But it's a good story. And with the visuals, like, wow, I'm a fan of litigation and disagreements among adults. And you find out there's a lot of interesting label differences when you look at one record. The publishing shifts, the distributor shifts, and the matrix information will shift as the record gets remastered when the deal changes. And there's a lot of information if you are so inclined to get out the mega magnifying glass and have no life, as I do not. And there's like me and 5 other people in the world who care. I call us the men with no lives. And you can tell a really good story. And so this idea went into battles on eBay, where I'm like trying to go up against my 5 rivals, the other men with no lives, and we all vie for the same records and flyers and set lists and bleed each other out financially. I let go with different eBay strategies for victory, not my most heldly close ones, because I'm still in battle. But the generic ones I can let loose to the public. And visits to record stores, and I go to them like up to 25 countries per tour. So here's photos from the record store in Moscow, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I do have photos of the record stores in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And so it was incumbent upon me to find a great way to reproduce images. And so I got my good pal Nicole, the great Smithsonian archivist, to tell me what kind of scanner to get. And then I flew her out to Los Angeles and hired her to teach me how to use it and how to do metadata and do databasing. And I learned pretty quickly. And thousands of scans later, I'm pretty good. And so since I am self-published, there's no rejection slip. So any dumb idea I come up with to make a book, no one is dependent.
You have complete freedom to.
Yes. And there's no one dependent upon me. There's no kids going, "Where's my dad?" There's just me. There's no cat. There's no nothing but me in the dust. And all these records and all these things to scan and all this stuff to write about. And so I write with no inhibition whatsoever. Is it self-indulgent? Probably. Is it well-intentioned? Absolutely. And so the books are basically an overachiever's fanzine with lots of photos. And the new volume 4, has like over 700 images, just because there's a lot of things to show. Yeah. And I go far and wide to get images to show. I go to clipping companies and I get every clipping of every live show the Damned did in 1979, because you got to be able to take the reader through the tour via Sounds Magazine, Enemy, and Melody Maker. Classified ads that started bands. I have clippings of these. The classified ad that started the Damned is about 1 inch by 1 inch. I think 1975, December, Melody Maker. A guy named Brian James was looking for a drummer. So he said, "Want a wild drummer, MC5, Stooges." And Rat Scabies looked at that. I went on eBay. I found a copy of that issue. I combed the back, and voila, there's that damn classified ad. And that's kind of, as they say, hitting them where they ain't, is that's how you get the home run. And so you blow that up and you put it on the page and you tell this arguably cool story about here's this beloved band, and here's the mouth of the river. Like, here's the source of how it came together. It's a freaking one ad. And from that practice room came like Generation X, Chelsea, The Clash, and The Damned. One practice room, because there's members of all those bands kind of splitting off in the early days. And so that's the spirit of all 4 volumes. And it's kind of the same volume over and over, with bands I'm obsessed with, but different photos and lots of exclamation points and lots of writing that could be seen as hyperbolic. Okay, thanks, Mr. Cynical. I'm just passionate and a fan. Mm-hmm. And so it's a love letter to this music that changed my life and rescued me from easily a life of conformity and mediocrity, which was absolutely where I was headed.
Mm-hmm. And as you're writing these, because these are from the road, they're dated, you'll say where you're at and what's happening. You'll give a little bit of an overview as to your environment at the time. Do you actually type it, or are you doing speech to text? Because it really does sound like you're speaking through those words.
I started off with my favorite way, which is to handwrite. And then I took all of my courage and I opened up these notebooks, and I had about 2 feet of them. And I started reading the writing. I'm like, okay, this holds up. Because, all the Seoul, South Korea stuff was all handwritten. And so, because I love handwriting. And I realized, I have to transcribe all of this. And I ended up having to transcribe about 250,000 words. And for a guy who can't type well, that's a lot. So I decided, okay. And I tried to entice myself to stay with it. So I would take the notebooks, backpack a few articles of cheap clothing, and I would do this transcription in interesting environments. So I'd go to Vietnam, get a cheap hotel, and do the transcription in Hanoi or in Taiwan or like in Beijing. I would just like live all over the world, where like in Lima. I'm up in the Peruvian Andes, like just grooving on all this writing I had to do just to keep myself awake. And so soon as I had gone through all of the handwriting, I said, okay, never again. I have to learn to type better because I just don't have the literal lifetime left to transcribe for 8 months to make one book that no one's going to care about. And so I use voice to text to answer emails quickly. I've never used it for Stay Fanatic or journal entries. I've actually, about 2 weeks ago, I somehow learned to do it on my phone for texting. And it just saves a lot of time because I'm not all that good with my thumbs. And so, but as far as the entries, I just write out of excitement and an aversion to feeling bad. And I'm one of those gloomy characters. I'm kind of, depressed and angry all of the time. And so what mitigates that is not only music, but thinking about music. Being obsessed about a single pressing of a record I already have 12 variants of that I won on eBay after a 5-year search, and it's in the mail, and I'm driving to the place to pick it up. So I still have that. I think my parents gave me a sled for Christmas, age 11 excitement. I still have that over records I'm after that I finally locate. Or people that I meet. At this point, I'm meeting people who are aging out, changing interest, and I'm purchasing their collections. So I'm capitalizing on like 40, 50 years of someone's dogged pursuit. These people remind me of me, but they're done. And so I, either fly or drive to them, go through their stuff, we make a deal, and I drag it back in, scanning, acid-free environments. And I make these amazing dot connections and breakthroughs because I now have this historical artifacts to do it.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of records coming into your life. Do you have records going out?
Do I go to the store and trade them in?
Or no, do you pass them on? Like, how do you, it's a two-way door, not a one-way door?
I'm kind of like a Roach Motel for records in that once they arrive, actually, they don't leave. And I'm loath to get rid of a record. In that, say the band doesn't, it didn't stand the test of time. You put it on the record, I never need to hear this again. It is a historical landmark of your interest. And so I'd rather, leave it for like the poor person who might be documenting my ridiculous collection after I've turned to dust. And it shows that was a part of the journey and I'm not going to name the band or bands, but I still kept the records. Every once in a while, I'll buy a record, but the band will send me one because I play them on the radio show and I'm a good customer and they'll lay something on me. And so I'll sometimes trade in the one I bought and keep the one that was given to me, unless the vinyl variant is different, and then I have to have both, of course. But every once in a while, like when I was living in Los Angeles, I was taking CDs that I had 2 of or vinyl I had 2 or 3 of to Amoeba and trading them in for credit so I could buy more records. But very rarely does a record leave.
One of the issues that I have, and I know a lot of other record collectors have, is space and just how to, how to best fill it. And you're talking about not only buying several records a week. It sounds like a dozen or more over eBay Discogs, but now you're talking whole collections.
Yeah, and the collections is also, as of late, have been a lot of paper. Contracts, correspondence, set lists, flyers, where the vinyl is like acetates, test pressings, where it's a single acetate plate, but it's like the freaking down payment on a car.
Yeah.
So it's one disc, but it's a Dead Sea Scroll as a 7, 10, or 12-inch bit of lacquer. And so, and that might be the only thing in the collection I wanted, but wow, there's one in the world. And it's at my place, and I just scanned it, whatever. And so the acquisitions have been, as far as vinyl, I buy a lot of new records. I have a radio show, and I'm convinced that music is not only as good as it's always been. I think independent music is maybe better than it's been in many, many years. And there's been times in the 80s and 90s and 2000s where, I was not thrilled with what was coming out. But then somewhere in the 2010 or 11, you see bands like the OSEES or Ty Segall, or what's happening in Washington, D.C., and there's always something happening in Oregon or in Washington State, and on and on. And you're like, wow. And the great bands coming out of Finland, like all the time. Really cool folk psych weirdness. Ireland, Scotland, England, Germany, like Berlin is just happening. All kinds of cool punk rock mixed with. Because these young people are smart and they're innovative, and thankfully they're pissed off and they're just doing really cool stuff. And I'm 63 on my passport. But in my mind, I don't know. I put on a record if I like it. If the perpetrators are 19, I don't feel like some weird old dude digging some young person's scene. I am a weird old dude digging some young person's scene. But I think all's fair in music. Like, you put the record on and you're ageless. And if you bought the record and you like it, I think you're in. As Bobby Bird used to say, I know you got soul because if you didn't, you wouldn't be in here. Like, why at the club? Because I like the drummer. I like what he's doing back there. Well, come on in, man. And that's kind of, I think, all you need to get into the party. You just have to be nodding your head going, man, I'm with it. And so I buy new records like all the time. I was up late last night checking out a really cool label out of China called Old Heaven Books. And they put out really cool avant psych folk music. And so I just racked up a whole bunch of damage I just did on a Bandcamp. And I haven't pulled the trigger on it. I'm just feeling so broke these days. But the music is so compelling. And up till I got some mail out from Old Heaven Books, I'm on their list. I'd never heard of this one guitar player. And I was listening to him last night going, wow. Multi-instrumentalist, kind of like Keiji Haino, just plays a bunch of different stuff. And, one of the last fun trips I had before COVID, I flew all the way to Tokyo, Japan, to see Keiji Haino, the great multi-instrumentalist, do his New Year's Eve marathon show. Mm-hmm. And, as the man gets older and older, the marathons are like, they get shorter and shorter. But I had to go see one. So I flew all the way out there, got a cheap hotel in Shinjuku to be near what's left of the record stores. Hit the record stores by day, coffee shops by night, and on December 30 or 31, something like that, I went to go see Keiji Haino do like a 2-hour and 50-minute set. Did a photo with the guy after the show. Took one more day just to walk around Tokyo because I love it. And then I flew back, and I arrived back in LA on Jan 1. A totally Fanatic mission. And I, of course, photos of the record stores, the people in the record store, the records I found, the records I left behind, all of it, snap away on photos to tell the whole story for anyone who might be inclined to torture themselves passing through the pages.
Is that something that would happen pretty regularly, or was that a bit of a surprise, a bit of a indulgent binge?
No, up until COVID, I would bounce all over the world. Metallica was closing a few shows for Iggy in Mexico City. So, of course, I have to fly down there. and make sure that Metallica is getting enough people applauding for them in case their feelings get hurt, because 68,000 people a night might not be enough.
I like how you put it there, closing for Iggy.
I got that. I stole that from Ween, because one time Ween opened for the Rollins band, and Dean came out and said, "We'd like to thank the Rollins band for closing for us tonight." You're like, okay. And so it's a steal. But I went down there to see Iggy, of course, because, he's a legend to me. And it's a flight. You can get on a plane. And I've never been to Mexico City, so I better go. And I did. And it was great. And, of course, I'm there for sound check, tons of photos, watching security check up, tons of photos, photographing the gig from the soundboard, making notes throughout the show, and so on and so on. And so I've done that multiple times, flying great distances to see shows, flying to New York for a week because Dinosaur Jr. is going to do 5 nights at, wherever. And that's just what I think is the right thing to do, because life is short. I have the means. I don't need to buy bottles of champagne or Lamborghinis. I'll buy plane tickets and I'll go be a fanatic. And then COVID came and kind of just dampened everything. And over the last few years, I've started on a massive project, the biggest thing I've ever torn off the hook. And it's basically depleted me of all of my money. So I'm not exactly rubbing 2 dimes together, but I'm parked next to the guy who lives in his car rubbing 2 dimes together to see this project through. And so that kind of trip, I just in good conscience cannot do that right now.
Are you able to talk about this project at all?
Not to you right now, in that I haven't finished it yet. And so putting the cart in front of the horse, talking about a maybe, to me is not the brave way to go. Although if you gave me 3 hours, I could talk to you in a single exhale about how excited I am about this thing, because it is absolutely cool. It's just about 10 times bigger than anything I've ever sought to do. And so it's been a really intense learning curve. And, it basically took all my savings, besides, like, if I ever choose to retire. I have some money put away so I can, get a couple of cans of beans when I'm living in the park. But past that, the rest of it went into this project. And so as it is now, I'm kind of in this holding phase, seeing if I have the clearance to finish it and unleash it. And once I do, it won't be subtle. And you'll go, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Yep. Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that. Hopefully we could have a conversation when you're ready to give the skinny on that.
Sure.
Let's back to record collecting, bootlegs. Now, in Stay Fanatic, and you cover a lot of bootleg material. It's clear you've hoovered up all the official releases, and now you're going well beyond that. What is your tolerance for bootleg material? Because a lot of it, all of it's done outside the scope of the band generally, and a lot of it is the quality is very, unpredictable, from excellent to awful. Yep. What is your tolerance in terms of the sort of bootlegs you collect and the ones that you'll pass up?
Well, my tolerance, I have nothing but sympathy for the band that's not getting paid. Like David Bowie, like almost the entire 1978 live tour is on vinyl and CD. Mm-hmm. And I know because I have them all. And I love that set. It's such a great lineup. Bowie's in great voice. Adrian Belew is just ridiculously good. And that's just like such a great set of songs. And so I have all of them. Did David Bowie get paid for any of it? I doubt it. Did David Bowie need any more dollars? That's not for me to say. But I'm allowed to be at the show in Melbourne, Australia, because someone taped it. And as you might know, there's like 9 Joy Division shows that were taped. They keep coming out in different variants, compilations, colored vinyl, different picture sleeves over and over. But it allows a guy like me to kind of sort of go to the Joy Division show and hear how insanely good they were live. Forget it. It's like white knuckle the whole way through. I wouldn't want to be the band going on after them. Yeah. I mean, just no. Be like going on after the birthday party or Fugazi. Like, pal, just don't do it. And so the bootlegs and Joy Division gets nothing. And apparently not everyone in the band is all that into it. It's not for, it's not for me to talk out of class. And it's fair enough if you're not into that. And there's even, believe it or not, Black Flag bootlegs. And I think it's great just because, there's fans out there like me who want to hear more. And so while the band isn't getting paid, okay, your question, where's the limit? My limit goes to where the audio is so appalling. You are taking advantage of people like me under this dodgy premise of we love music, and you wouldn't do that to a fellow music fan. But I love music, and the bootlegger might like music, but they definitely like money. And so when the financial outweighs, we're going to turn this tape loose to the fans, or we're just going to make some money, when you can tell they just knew there's guys like me showing up, and they'll buy the damn record and pay too much in postage because it's coming from wherever. $30 for the record, $40 in postage, and it's just this bad tape. And it's not even the show that's advertised. It's a bad copy of the other show that we all have 12 versions of. So all you did was take me for my money. You took a music fan for his money. You should do that to some day trader, but not to a true believer in like the promise of music. Like, come on, man. Me? Like I showed up in the rain with my T-shirt on and my ticket melting in my hand because I walked 40 miles to the show. And so that's where I draw the line. Also, in some countries, a studio album will get bootlegged because the damn record didn't come out in insert Eastern Bloc country here. And even my records, which no one really cares about, have been bootlegged in some of these countries. And I buy them because I'm interested in the picture sleeve and the fact that it's a bootleg that I'm on. And so that's where I draw the line, where you crassly went after my money. If I can hear more minutes of a band I really like while I sympathize with the band members' discontent, I'm going to buy it anyway because I'm just a fan. And as you said, I already bought all the official records and the remastered reissue, and the 7-inch and the 10-inch and the 12-inch, and from every different territory. Like, I gave you a lot of money, but I understand the band members' discontent might not be financial. It's like, that's not your music to put out on vinyl, man. I get that. But I also get how much I love putting on a birthday party LP bootleg and hearing how insanely good the birthday party was. Another band you'd be stupid to go on after.
So you bring up a good point, because a lot of these it may not just be motivated by money, but maybe the artist doesn't feel that their playing was up to scratch that night. Or, now as an artist yourself, what's your reaction if someone's bootlegging you on perhaps not a night that you want to remember that much?
Hey there, all you record nerds. I want to tell you about BagsUnlimited.com. BagsUnlimited.com has a huge selection of vinyl record supplies. Whether you collect LPs, 7-inch singles, 78 shellacs, or anything in between, BagsUnlimited.com will sort you out. From polyline sleeves to cardboard record mailers to 7-inch storage boxes and archive quality record sleeves, protect your records of any size and shape at BagsUnlimited.com. Whether you have a small personal record collection or you're running a massive record shop, you can grab a small supply or even buy in bulk at BagsUnlimited.com. And they've got some really incredible, unique stuff. BagsUnlimited.com even has special size sleeves made especially to protect your box sets, storage boxes and sleeves for cassette tapes, protective supplies for reel-to-reel, and yes, even 8-tracks. Just go to BagsUnlimited.com, click on audio supplies, and prepare to be impressed by all the options they have. That's BagsUnlimited.com. Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream. Made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents, these gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle.
Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VINYLGUIDE10. Now, as an artist yourself, what's your reaction if someone's bootlegging you on perhaps not a night that you want to remember that much?
I chalk it up to that's just how it is. Mm-hmm. Like many years ago, I used to do a tape, professionally tape, road manager with microphones sets it up. We very well tape all of my shows. And I remember one or two nights out of the 210 that was actually kind of good. I listen back. I make a few quick edits in Pro Tools to get the uhs and uh-huhs and the people passing out in the aisles out of it. And I put it out on CD. And it sells like 4 copies to the people who put it on YouTube the next day. And then it's listened to a bunch of times and sales stop. Did it make me mad? No, that's just how it is. So what does the smart money do? Stop making spoken word CDs, man. And so I just stopped. I just stopped abruptly. I after whatever it was, 2010 or something, I never made another one. Right. Because, and even the DVDs, it's up on YouTube and people I work with will go to YouTube and have them take it down. And then it's like whack-a-mole. And the management will say, do you want us to keep going after? I'm like, why? It's like going after the ivy that crawls up the wall of your house. Just, it's going to keep going. It's the way of the world. So just stop making DVDs. But what bugs me about all of that is when you have the person with the shaky cell phone cam making a DVD-R and selling that on eBay for $60, and actually 1 or 2 people will buy it. It looks bad, it sounds bad, and you just took some poor guy for $60. You should just put it on YouTube for free and let everyone suffer without paying.
And you annoyed the people behind you by holding the thing up for an hour.
Exactly. and you're charging that much for a thing that doesn't look good. You're doing a fan a disservice. Obviously, you're in it for the money. You might have just gone to make the DVD. People come to my shows and wait outside before the show and after with photos they got off the internet. They've printed up 5 or guitar pick guards. I don't play guitar. Hey, sign these because my friends couldn't make it to the show. Those go on eBay or other trading sites almost immediately. And I have good site memory. I remember signing that record what night, and I'm like, and there it is. 3 nights later, it's for sale. And I did that because you told me you were a fan. And again, you betrayed the trust. And all these people, Iggy Pop, David Bowie, there's all these signed records where no doubt they went up to those people and went, oh, dude, you're the man. And these people kindly signed the thing, and the guy was only money-minded. And so after the last tour, when I was in England and I did all signed all these things for all these people, all these men with no lives, outside Soundcheck. And I saw them on eBay the next day with photos of me signing with their own faces blanked out to like proof of the provenance.
You still got the same shirt on from when you were signing the record.
But I, it was like, like a day and a half ago. And I wrote the guy like, really, man, you did that? And he went, well, yeah, bite me. Like, what are you going to do? Nothing. It's capitalism. And so I made a new rule. When I get back from the gym, usually they're waiting for me by the Bon Jovi Mobile. No offense. I just go, no, man, I don't do it anymore because you guys, you lie too much. But Henry, I know, man, and I'm sorry. Just write me some hate mail, or like text about it. Go on Facebook. I don't even know how Facebook works. Unfollow me. But like you guys have broken your promise to me too many times, and so the only mistake I make is to keep showing up for the whooping. I'm not mad at him. I understand someone trying to make a buck. I get it. But I just don't show up to be one half of the equation anymore. But all of that stuff, thanks to the internet, all of that stuff is immediate. You can get something signed by the guy in the band, and you can put it online for sale as soon as you get home. You can probably do it on the way home. Mm-hmm. So that is, and I see signed things of mine online fairly often. And I'm, pretty good at recognizing my signature. That's a forgery. That's a forgery. And I see someone bidding on it. I'll write the guy like, pal, don't put any money in on that anymore. Hopefully you'll be outbid. That's not me.
Yeah.
And like, if you ever come to one of my shows, remind me and I'll sign a record for you because you threw your money down, but like you're about to get ripped off.
Right. It sounds like you spend a lot of time on eBay and Discogs each day.
Oh, yes, I do.
Tell me about that routine.
I have a bunch of bookmarks on the laptop, and I run them continuously. And I won't tell you what the bookmarks are, but I just keep hitting them. And then there's ones I just type in and check. But, my heroes and the bands I'm obsessed with since, like, Carter was president, like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 times a day. Just because I take a break from editing, scanning, proofreading, making a radio show. And I just hit the tabs and just run the course. And they're in the top left bar over the Google page. Easy to do. And even different auction houses. So I've kind of put on my big boy pants and learned to auction with for some real upper tier materials, which is a much rougher room. Like there's some people throw a lot of money at like an old poster for the Grandy Ballroom, like $17,000, which is way too rich for a guy like me. I'm more of an eBay Discogs, like where $40 causes like my heart to skip. But I'm after some stuff. I'm trying to do something here, and so I've kind of broken into that upper tier of the rough room of going to the auction.
Yeah.
I'm on them constantly looking for crumbs. I'm the person looking for chunks of crack in the carpet. But it's music.
So I used to do something very similar, and I found that it gave me a lot of anxiety because at any moment I'm like, well, I should refresh. It made me a little bit too ultra alert. Yeah. And I was getting alerts on my phone, and I finally had to, for the sake of my own sanity, kind of pause that activity. How do you manage with that?
Oh, I just get stressed out.
Okay. You deal with it.
I stay with it, man. Oh yeah. And I'm on all these like Bandcamp pages. There's so many bands and labels I like. So I'm not all that adept at the phone, my phone. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a laptop kind of guy, and so I get all those alerts. This label and this band just released this T-shirt, and I don't really care about the cloth. I'm more of the vinyl type, but I get those dings as far as email alerts all the time. And on Friday, it seems like all the labels in Bandcamp all conspire, and you get like 5 inches of hey, we're doing this. It's like Big Happy Friday. And I go through all of them because I've weaned out the ones I don't want to hear from. And it's all interesting incoming. But Discogs, where it is a buy it now format. And there's records, I don't want to think about what I've lost because the other two people in the world who wanted that record refreshed, saw it, and bought it.
Yeah.
And I refreshed a minute later, and I never knew it was ever on Discogs. And there's one record in particular, I keep seeing it, like one day I'm going to click on that bookmark and it's going to be there. There's one of the downsides with Discogs, and I brought this up to people at Discogs, is a lot of the sellers, now that Discogs is so big, the quality of sellers is a bit erratic. In that someone will put up, well, it's this pressing of this record. So you buy it to lock out the two other losers who might want it. And this record comes all the way from France or Belgium or Italy or Australia. And it's not what they advertised. Mm-hmm. And you have to write back and go, man, like, I need my money back. I need the postage that's going to cost. Well, no. Well, yeah, man, because you weren't honest. Well, I didn't know. Well, you need to know. What are you, a collector scum? I believed you. You can call me any name you want, but truth in advertising. And so sadly, when something really rare comes up, like, months ago, there was a South African pressing of the first Stooges record. I've been after this for a while. So I had to write the guy with a clock. Just, like some other person, like the Stooges is a band some people have some interest in. Trust me. I know all too painfully. And I have to write the guy hoping he's awake and attentive. Like, is this the South African pressing with this, and this? Waiting, refresh to get the green light to make the purchase. And luckily, the guy went, yeah, I'm a fan too. Yes, this is the thing. Sold to me. But it could have been someone who just went, well, I'm just going to trust it and I'll just have to deal with the fallout later if it's the wrong one. And he would have beat me. And so I have at least lost one or two records to that. But I've saved myself the hassle and have the guy write back, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. Hold on. And he reposts the correct. And I help him through. I go, no, it kind of looks the same, but the one you're talking about is actually this one. And he'll go, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I'm new to Discogs. It's cool, man. But, like, trust me, there's people like me who are depending on you being accurate. And now and then Discogs will write me like, hey, why don't you write a thing for us? Like, free. And I'm like, no. How about you hold the sellers to a higher degree of scrutiny before you let them sell on your platform? Well, why don't you write a thing about that? Why don't you just do your job and and I love Discogs, but don't make it so someone can not know the thing and waste my time. Because some of these sellers are not cool about giving you your money back. And it's like another 7 weeks to get the money and the vinyl back to the guy because and so I'm a 63-year-old man, and this is a first world problem. And so I am loath to complain too much, but it's hilarious to hear someone like me opine about this kind of thing because I know it is a non-issue in the real world. But this is the kind of thing that fills the pages of these books. Because to me, ultimately, it's hilarious because it's about nothing. It's like a perfect Larry David moment. What is this thing about? Nothing. That's why it's so funny.
In the grand scheme of things, yeah, I think it's rather indulgent to, this hobby of ours. So if we have a hobby like this, our life is to a level of which we really don't have any significant complaints.
Yeah, and as a conscientious person, I spend plenty of time concerned about who the next president of the United States will be, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on with the tectonic plates shifting in Pasadena, California today. And so I think I have done my due diligence paying attention to the world and real world issues. But every now and then, life being short, I like to concentrate on the minute and inessential and obsess over it because I'm addicted to records and music and collecting all this stuff. I am not addicted to gambling, cocaine, conning people. I just like music and flyers and set lists and records. I don't think that's self-harming. I don't think it twists an arm or picks a pocket. And so no harm, no foul all day. And if I want to go like completely overboard on all this stuff, again, no one's harmed. You know, it's not a gambling addiction or an addiction to $9,000 bottles of wine. It's just too much attention paid to something that no one else cares about. At my age, I really don't care who or who is not interested in this stuff. I am. Sadly, when you put a book together and you press copies of it, you need to sell enough to break even. And that's all I want to do with these Stay Fanatic books. Break even, which happens very quickly, mercifully, and then maybe make a little so we can, I have a staff, I pay salaries, got to keep the lights on, but all I want to do is be able to make the next one. And so it's all about sustainability and maybe having some consensus, because like the 8 people who do actually write me about these books are like, man, I've been waiting on this one. Oh, it's my favorite one so far. That's great. And it's not like I need to hear that in order to make the next one. I'm going to make it anyway.
Yeah.
It sure is cool to hear that someone else is picking up on your signal and feeling that euphoria and that happiness that where music puts us. And, in my mind, it is humankind's greatest thing is music. It's the best thing that humans ever came up with. It's better than war. It's better than AI as far as like making fake ads to make someone seem bad. It's John Coltrane, where you listen to those records, you're like, how can any human be that beautiful? And I never met the guy. I never saw the man play. But you put the record on and you're like, I am so lucky. I have ears, I have a record player, and I have this record. And I've never gotten over that sheer wonder of like putting on Perverted by Language by The Fall for like the 80,000th time and listening to like, how can a band be this good? Like, how do they do that? And I actually asked one of the members of the band, he said, yeah, we recorded that like for like 750 pounds in a day and a half. I'm like, shut up. That's not fair. Because I spent way more and spent way more time to make a record that, I heard it back and went, oh, okay, let's put it out. And so music still does that to me. And the Stay Fanatic series is a celebration of that fun of all of that, just taken to a crazy extreme because I'm an extreme person. But I think a lot of people like music enough. And I was raised by a woman with impeccable taste in music. My mom turned me on to like Stravinsky, Bartok, Barbra Streisand, Bob Dylan, Glenn Campbell, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, Wagner, and on and on and on. Monk, Mingus, like Miles. She used to go see all these people play. I'm old. Like she would drag me out to watch Pete Seeger sing protest songs, and everyone's like rocking back and forth singing, Kumbaya, or Michael, row your boat ashore. And, we rarely watch TV. She had a TV, really tiny screen to watch, Walter Cronkite, but she played one record after another. And on the weekends, it was just like nonstop, wall to wall. Carole King into this one, into this one, into this one. And I became kind of like her, like go to the record store, get a record, read a book. We had walls of books and walls of records in these micro apartments we lived in the Washington, D.C. area. And my small and uninteresting house is walls of books and records, and I have no TV. I watch things online, but I don't have a TV. I should get a flat screen because I have all those cool DVDs with all the extra stuff of all the Kurosawa films I'd like to watch once. So I definitely need a flat screen someday. But I have no real use for a TV because there's a book to read or a book to write, and music to listen to and music to write about. And so a TV, it's just kind of a waste of my time. And that's just kind of sort of how I was raised.
Mm-hmm. But with you being on the road so much, that's a lot of time away from your record collection as well. Do you bring a portable record player with you at all?
My road manager does. And I think it's a Third Man thing made by Crossley, and they sound really good. And so he goes to record stores every day. Like, he's the smart one. We were in 26 countries over the last 2 years, the year before and the year before that. And wherever we land, he's got some app on his phone. He's just a smart guy. I go to the gym. He goes to the record stores. When I come back, he tells me if there's anything I need to know. Or he'll text me while I'm on the treadmill or something like, hey, I just found this. Really good pressing, really good price. Do you want it? And I just text back, oh, yes. And that's how I get a pristine copy of a Noy record or something that I didn't have before. And so Ward is always looking. And so we do get analog playback because of Ward and his mini turntable. He drags from continent to continent. I reconcile myself to digital playback for up to 8 or 9 months of a year. So I've tried to make that as groovy as possible with a D to A converter made by Shure through a cool speaker system. And it sounds pretty good, but it's good enough when you're in a dressing room in Warsaw and it's like, 41 degrees, but at least you can still listen to some music. It's not analog, but the room isn't silent either, so it's good. And it just makes me take as much vinyl time as I can in the brief moments I'm home. And I'm trying to recover from 2 years of touring where there's literally, I'm not exaggerating, there's over 15 feet on an LP shelf of unplayed records. I've measured it. And it's easy to get them because I'm mail ordering them, winning them, and buying them on the road. Like in some parts of Scandinavia, all those Hendrix bootlegs, they're still around in these stores. And I had them on CD from the 80s, but I never had them on vinyl. And when you see them, like, oh, that's coming with me. And I come back from Australia and Europe with an extra suitcase, literally, to fit all the damn records. Or sometimes I'd go from Australia to South Africa. My road manager would fly back to California, and he'd have to take my records back with him. Good soul that he is. And so I spend quite a bit of time away from the records. And so at this point, I play catch up. I'm just trying to put a dent in the unheard section before I can't find my shoes.
Can you briefly describe your home stereo system?
Yeah, it's a, let's see, Alexandria XLF speakers by Wilson. It's not their newest model, but it's the one before the new version of them. A VTL amps, 1 amp per speaker. Channel? Yeah. VTL preamps and all of that. The guy who invented the VTL company came and installed them himself. Nice guy. A Monaco 1.5 turntable. A Grand Prix 1.5. A triplanar tone arm. And I'm forgetting the cartridge I have on there now. It's not the great one I had on there, but the one I had on there got damaged. So I needed a new one, and the one I had on there is no longer made, and it's not as good as the one I used to have. But it's more mid-range happy, and it doesn't rock as hard as when you want to put on like Black Sabbath or something. And it doesn't get acoustic low, and like my old cartridge did. But so it's an audiophile system, and I have 4 Wilson speakers. The Alexandria XLFs are the big ones, and then I have some smaller ones, and those are powered by Macintosh, pre and amps.
Is your system pretty stable, or are you constantly switching things in and out?
Oh, no. It's stable to where I had to have the pros who built it in LA dismantle it, pack it. We put it in a truck. We drove it to where I live now. I had to fly them to LA and put them up and feed them. And they came out, rebuilt them, and positioned them in my new listening room. And I'm embarrassed to tell you how much that cost.
Yeah.
And so this is a system that cost a whole lot of dough. And it took me years to get the gumption to buy it. I kept saying, like, one more tour. And finally, my manager said, you're not getting any younger. You have the money. Just buy the damn thing. I said, I want to hear it from the accountant that I have the money because I don't keep track. And she goes, okay. So we got on the phone. And he said, you're going to pay for us. We can't write that off. He doesn't appreciate it. I'm like, no, it's because of music. He's like, I drive a VW Rabbit. And you're like, what are you doing? He's a sensible man. And I said, well, you'll come over sometime and listen to how cool Kraftwerk sounds on this thing. You'll levitate. And so I got that system, and to bring it across the country to my new home was insanely expensive. I mean, you could have bought a really nice stereo system a couple of times over with what it cost us to break it down, pack it, drive it, set it back up, position it, and power it up. So no, I'm afraid to touch this thing. And now and then a fuse blows. I'm like, oh no, the toy. And I call the guy. I'm like, okay, I put a new fuse in, right? So I go to the back. He's like, you know, we're FaceTime. He's like, okay, take your screwdriver. Because I'm afraid of hurting the toy because I don't know how any of it works. And so absolutely not a damn thing changes on it unless a pro comes over. Like, you know, install a tape deck. You install it. I'm not going near it. Because it's not like my old systems like, you know, here's an RCA plug. Go nuts. This is all fancy schmancy and delicate. And I'm very careful when I put the needle on the record, very careful when I take it off. And, you know, very careful how I store the record and on and on. So, yeah, it's a system I have great respect for. But I use it between 5 and 7 nights a week. And I've had the system since 2012. And I dare say, due to the fact that I can burn through a full set of tubes in both amps in about 11 years, I am using it, you know, hundreds of hours a year.
Mm-hmm. So you collect records.
Yeah.
Paper, flyers,
I'm
set
a
lists.
paper fanatic, yeah.
Right. Acetates, test pressings. What's the oddest thing in your collection? Perhaps a personal item. Do you collect personal items for like someone like Ian Curtis, something that belonged to him? Is that part of, does that interest you? All right, we're going to hit the pause button for right now. That's the end of part 1. Remember to follow the Vinyl Guide podcast in your podcast app, and you'll get to hear part 2 of this interview the moment that it gets published. All you got to do is click that little follow button to where it goes from a plus to a check or whatever, and even get an alert for when episodes come out, and you'll be enjoying part 2 of this interview before you know it. And if you absolutely cannot wait, you got to hear it now. The full version is available to Patreon legends at patreon.com/vinylguide. So head up there now, help support the show, and you can enjoy part 2 plus all the other extras right now. Otherwise, thanks again for listening, and keep your ears open for part 2 coming shortly. Cheers.